Hey y'all, today we are talking Delta, September 21st and 22nd. That is right, the last tournament, club tournament for me and the club. Kind of nice to have it done. That is 3 months straight of Delta. Next we switch over to Clear Lake and Comanche and Berryessa. Tons of fun to go, but you're not here for that. You are here for Delta. And it was a pretty good weekend overall. Caught a lot of fish. Actually had troubles cutting down footage for this video. In fact, every single fish that you see in this background is a keeper or larger. And it's kind of nice to be able to say that I was able to get that many keepers, because it has been a dink fest out there for me lately. Caught them on a wide array of baits. There is a bunch of stuff to come. I'm going to chop them all down to the most effective baits and kind of what was going on. So, weather was cold, nice brisk mornings. And then the afternoon, it got to where it was so hot and you were begging for wind. I would say in the 90s, somewhere around there. Water temperature has dropped into like the 60s, high 60s, low 70s, depending on where you are, what you're doing. Morning, afternoon, like I said, big temperature swings, so it changes that water the shallower you get. Tides were not that great. It was like a 2-foot swing over, I think it was like 8 hours or something like that. Not great tide swings, but still caught fish. So, enough with all that jibber jabber stuff. Let's get into the fish catching. Saturday morning, I ran to one of my little places that I love to go to and started to fish that. And it's the wrong tide, couldn't do well, couldn't get bit. When just realized, oh crud, my game plan is not good. Ended up taking off, going to another area that was my backup area. Was hoping not to go to the backup area. And while going to that area, I picked up a buzz bait. Wasn't really getting any action. In the meantime, my co-angler, Braden, I had him pick up a Cinco. This is watermelon slice laminate. It's the only color Cinco you hear me talk about. Had him pick up that, started picking up some fish. While he was doing that, I actually picked up a jig rig and started flipping around. This is watermelon red, the rage tail rage bug. Jig rig is basically like a really short drop shot. If you can see that, it's just a weight attached to the nose of a hook. Some people call them Jika rigs. Picked this up, started flipping it around, and started picking up bites, but I was missing a lot of the bites. They were so subtle. And then I kind of figured out that what he needed to do is I needed to throw against the walls of tules. So if there was like a hard line of tules, throw against those hard walls, and then it just starts swimming out at you. Never felt a thump, never felt a tick, nothing. It would just start swimming out. That was working really good. That was still a little bit of incoming tide on that. Had less incoming tide on Saturday than I did on Sunday. And all during that incoming tide, I was basically just flipping this little thing around, and Braden was throwing that Cinco around. And again, just picking off tule edges. Some of them came from a little bit deeper, but a lot of them came from that shallower length or that shallower depth. Kind of all that bite died out when that tide switched. When it went to slack, it kind of died. Didn't really want to stick around to it with that outgoing. I kind of tried to do it. I tried going deeper. Wasn't really working for me. So I started jumping around, going to different areas. Went to another area that I like to fish on outgoing tide, and I was actually throwing the jig rig still, and I was trying to throw up shallow, and it just didn't feel right. So then I started picking off the deeper weeds, and I mean like 6 foot, somewhere around there, deeper weeds or more, and started picking up a couple of fish. And then I had one, as I was reeling it in, come up and smoke it. And I thought, all right, if they're gonna hit this while reeling it in at a pretty quick pace, how about I pick up a chatterbait? I ran a chatterbait along there, couldn't get bit, couldn't get followed. I actually did have forward scan on at that time just because I was in search mode. I didn't have it on before that. And I couldn't even get anything to follow it. So I actually picked up the good old lipless crankbait. I call this cake bait. This is named after that because someone made me probably the coolest cake I've ever been made. It was modeled after this bait. This is an Excalibur 50, XR50 I believe it is. They don't make these anymore, but lipless is a lipless. Was running this along there and started to go over the top of those weeds, and they were either on the top of the weeds or the inside edge of those deep, deep weeds. Was picking them up, just not getting the size that I needed. At that point, I needed 2 pluses to do any upgrading. So then I jucked and jived from there, ran to another area, tried that, didn't work, and I was trying to duplicate that deeper weed edge, wasn't working. And then ran to another area that's an actual deeper area with kind of no weeds, a little more rock. Picked up an A-rig, and there was multiple fish down there in that 10, 15 foot range. And I ended up picking up one of these, which was a small keeper. Most everything down there, like I said, was in search mode, so I was looking on forward scan. Was all about the same size, didn't help us, and I said, well, I gotta abandon that, although there's a bunch of fish there on that A-rig. And that was 3.8s and 3.3s and 2.8s. Moved on from there and went up and ended up picking up the Cinco again and throwing on the deeper weed edge and just flipping on the outside of that weed edge and just dead sticking it and letting it just sit there and marinate for a long time. In the middle of doing that, started picking up some fish, made a couple of good calls. Braden picked up the good old pink worm, Morning Dawn, chartreuse tail, robo worm. He was kind of wacky rigging it, up there, and he was throwing that in there on that weed line. And we got into a flurry of them around that green grass. So it's kind of cool, like at the end of the day, kind of put something back together because I kind of felt lost there in the middle of the day as far as larger bites, that is. Still caught fish, just not the large ones. Ended up with 996 for 4th place. Not that great. Kind of was feeling that it wasn't on that much, but I was still happy to get every bit I had because I honestly didn't think we were even on 9 pounds worth of fish. So it was kind of nice. Sunday, we'll get into Sunday. Sunday's going to be a little bit quicker because most of it was the front half of the morning during that incoming tide. I ran back to a similar area during that incoming tide, and this time I was flipping around this and it wasn't really getting any action, and I ended up picking up the Chopo, the white Chopo. This is the 105 size, so a little bit, it's still good size, but not the biggest one. And was running this past actually the deeper Thule edges. They weren't up in that shallow stuff for some reason. And I was running on the outside and picked up a solid 3 and a couple like 2.5s. And then like a 2, just running that Chopo around, running it around. I did pick up one on a jig rig, but it actually was while reeling it in again. Still picked up a chatterbait, still couldn't get anything to bite. The only thing I wish I had was a swim jig in this color. I really think that a swim jig, that subtle presentation, would be a lot better for that situation. Again, meanwhile, Braden is pretty much was hooked. And on this Cinco, it was definitely producing. And he had picked up a lot of different things throughout the day. He had caught some things here, some things there. But like some spinnerbait fish. I forgot to grab that. There's a spinnerbait fish. It was all white, silver blades. Braden was actually throwing that one. And realistically, that Cinco was probably the most consistent bite for him. So he stuck to that, and then we started bouncing around some spots, shopping through some stuff. None of it was really working on Sunday. That as far as like, I'm sure I could find smaller bites, like smaller fish bites, but I wasn't trying to go for that. At this point, our smallest fish was like 2 pounds-ish, somewhere around there. I couldn't do with like just a regular size keeper. We needed to figure out how to get a bigger bite. So we were jucking and jiving, ended up running back to that same area that we did in the morning, and tide was pretty well out, and Braden picks up one more on that Cinco, enough to give us $11.65 for our bag, which ended up being 4th for the entire weekend, 3rd for Sunday. Winners of the tournament had Saturday, Stephen fished with his wife. It was $13.90, and then on Sunday he fished with Kaliko, and he had $13.83. So he was very, very consistent, and he was throwing a Cinco in basically weeds is what he said. I'm not 100% sure, was not in the boat with him, but that's what they say. The cool thing about the tournament is when you get done in your top 3 in this club, top 3 get to talk about how they did it. And that's what he said. It was a Cinco, and I think a shaky head also played a little bit ahead, or a Nico or something like that. It's pretty much a recap of the weekend. Biggest bites either came on the Chapo, the Cinco, or this jig rig in the Watermelon Red. Those are the 3 biggest bites of the whole weekend. The fun bites were A-rig and LV along there, and also drop shot. But I mean, it's been a while. I've been wanting to get back into flipping. It's really nice to get back into flipping. I keep telling myself that I'm going to do it. I've messaged Bass Union and asked them for rod recommendations and stuff like that, just because I've been wanting to get back into it. So it's nice to finally sink my toes into the sand and get some confidence back in it. That's pretty much it for the weekend. Brian ended up with second place, sorry, with a little over 12 pounds. So it's Delta. There's big ones getting caught, but they're kind of few and far between, especially for the club right now, and especially for me right now. Stay tuned. I'm not sure what's coming out, but the next tournament will be Clear Lake, and it will be fun. And Clear Lake is putting them out right now, and if you don't know, Berryessa is putting them out right now. So between these baits and all this other stuff, that should get you going. And until next time, if you have any questions, you can ask them down below. You could always hit me up on Instagram, and I hope you get them.
For your dink of the day. Is it bigger or smaller than yours?
I think smaller.
I might have the new reigning dink of the day. He's like a big fish, but smaller. Oh yeah, that was definitely dink of the day. Now look at it. Dink of the day. Top that, Braden.
God, you want me to start throwing drop shots?
You're gonna have to size down with a drop shot to get one smaller than that.
Yeah.
That's like the cutest little